NFL. He's got a new show dropping on YouTube this weekend. He played in the NFL, was a national champ at LSU. Breiden Fehoko on You Better You Bet. Morning, Breiden. How are you, my man?
Morning, guys. Appreciate you. Just want to, is my audio coming in good first and foremost this morning?
You sound fantastic, my man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with Deshaun Watson. You said this on Twitter last night. I think most people feel the same way. They pay him this much. Of course, he's going to be the starter, even though he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass since October of 2024. But this is what happens when owners try to step in where maybe they shouldn't be running things. Just how does this work out in Cleveland if it does end up working out, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, in my opinion and from what I've been hearing, Deshaun Watson is always going to get the first edge at anything, whether it's, the first snaps at quarterback during training camp or the first snaps in September, barring none if he's healthy. And I think this whole situation that's been arised by, I think, mainly the fan side of things on social media, right? When they see the Shador stuff, when they see the quarterback competition, in my eyes, there's not really any quarterback competition when you're paying somebody $220 million fully guaranteed. The writing's on the wall. The investment's already been made. It's been Deshaun Watson's spot since he signed that contract in Cleveland. And I just wanted to let fans know that last night, especially the Shador Sanders fans, that I know you guys saw a little clip of Shador and Todd Monken earlier in the year when Todd Monken got hired. Things were happy. Todd Monken was like, hey, I wanted you in Baltimore. But that doesn't mean he's the starting quarterback. And so there's a lot of haziness, a lot of cloudiness that needs to be cleared up, but it's Deshaun Watson's spot until otherwise.
Do you think Todd Monken has any idea what he's getting into in Cleveland with Jimmy Haslam as the owner?
I don't think Todd Monken has any idea. However, when he accepted that job, he knew that, and I'm not going to call Cleveland a cesspool, in the bottom bucket of the AFC North, but Cleveland has been there for some time now. And so when you have a guy like Todd Monken who accepts that job, you have to know what you're getting into. And he knew that. Obviously, when he was in Baltimore, he probably saw the social media rumblings about what's going on, Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders, who should be the quarterback. They traded a couple guys. And so to me, Todd Monken, I don't think he kind of knew what ownership was like hands-on, but I'd be sitting here telling you that you're crazy to not know that Todd Monken didn't have any idea about what it was going into when he had the job at Cleveland.
Breiden Fehoko's got a new show dropping on YouTube later this weekend called The Fehoko Show. You can see it there. Just search for Breiden, Breiden, on YouTube. Played in the league, played for LSU. You also spent some time with the Steelers, and they've got their own quarterback issue going on where they're still sitting and waiting for Aaron Rodgers. Just as someone who was a part of the organization for a little bit, does it surprise you that they're continuing to play this game with Aaron? And do you think maybe that UFA tag they put on him the other day is maybe a way to try and push him to make a decision and get something done before OTAs start in a few weeks?
Well, if anything, I think to me, especially being around Aaron for the short time I have been and being around the organization, the tender is only going to push him away. I don't think it's going to attract him in. When you try to put more on a guy's plate, when he already knows what's at hand and what's at store for him and the relationship that's already been built there. And it's not like Pittsburgh has a totally new head coach that Aaron Rodgers is unfamiliar with. I mean, him and Mike McCarthy have really good history together back to Green Bay. So it's not like they're total strangers, right? However, I just think that the whole reason Pittsburgh's doing it is because, one, they're not confident in their quarterback room right now. Mason Rudolph, Drew Allar, and Will Howard. If you were very confident, you wouldn't be going through marathons and hills and uphill roads and all this mashup to, try and retain Aaron Rodgers if you didn't have no confidence in the room you had now. And so I think, and I would love for Aaron to come back to Pittsburgh, but I don't think Pittsburgh's going about it the right way. You drafted somebody in the third round, then you put the tender on them. So you're kind of telling them like, hey, we need you. We kind of want you back. You can't sign with anybody. But if you retire, that's kind of the only option we're giving you right now.
Breiden, what about, let's keep it in the AFC North for a second, because I was talking about the Bengals on the show the other day and how, rightfully so, they're all in on now, right? Like they go out and get Dexter Lawrence. They trade the 10th pick overall, pardon me, to do so. They should be all in on now. Joe Burrow's their quarterback. They need to maximize him at the peak of his potential. Would you be at all shocked if things don't work out in Cincy this year? If it's a fourth straight year without a playoff appearance? There were already kind of some rumblings about this past offseason. Would you be at all shocked if Joe Burrow went to Cincy ownership and was like, listen, it's been nice, but I'm out?
Yeah, I think we could possibly be on the verge here of a Matthew Stafford 2.0, where it's like, hey, Joe, you're too good for us. We've tried to do everything in our power to surround you with good talent at receiver. We've tried to get defensive talent on that side of the ball. But if Joe Burrow does end up leaving Cincinnati, it won't be because the Cincinnati Bengals are done with him. It's going to be because Joe Burrow has just, I'm not going to say fed up, because he's not that type of guy to call it quits on his team. But Joe Burrow would be trying to look for new avenues and look for ways to, how can I get to that pedestal of being one of those quarterbacks with a Super Bowl championship? Now, when I look at the offseason acquisitions this year, I mean, trading the number 10 pick, let alone for a guy like Dexter Lawrence, that shows me, oh, hey, Joe Burrow, this front office, we're invested. 2 years ago, 2024, or I think it was the year he had the MVP year where their defense was just horrific. If they had somewhat of a defense that year, they make a Super Bowl run. And so they've added Jonathan Allen, they've added Dexter Lawrence, they've added some back-end guys, really good players all around. And they're telling Joe Burrow that, hey, we know you can put up 30 points a game. Let's try hold teams to 14 or less, and let's see where we can go this year. But I don't think that just necessarily applies to Joe Burrow. I think a lot of those 2020 quarterbacks are on a ticking time bomb right now. You look at Justin Herbert with the Chargers. You look at Jalen Hurts and all those rumblings with the Philadelphia Eagles this offseason. Things are going to come close here in the next couple months to, hey, we need to find out if we're really in the running right now, if we're in the contention, or we need to go and trade these guys and go in a different avenue with these quarterbacks.
Breiden Fehoko joining us here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Chris Mack in for Nick Costos. You also spent some time in the same room with George Pickens a couple years ago, and George has his own things going on in Dallas. It sounds now, the reports now are that he is signing his franchise tag, but that may just be a maneuver for the Cowboys. They say they're going to keep him on the roster, but you never know. If somebody comes calling with a first-round pick, that may change their idea on the situation. How confident would you be if you were in the Cowboys front office right now that George Pickens is actually going to be on the field for you and be engaged for all 18 weeks of the season this fall?
Loved how you used the word engage. I would not be surprised if George Pickens does not play another snap in the Dallas Cowboys uniform this year, and for good reasons. I think, one, the whole idea of Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones trying to say we need more prove-its, we need more evidence of a long-term deal, right? Kind of telling George Pickens, like, hey, you're good, but we got to see more. I think that's disrespectful. I think when CeeDee Lamb got hurt last year and the Dallas Cowboys offense was a lot more efficient, they were a lot more explosive. The stats do not lie. You can look at the numbers. They're there for everybody. They're free. George Pickens, when he was the featured receiver last year after CeeDee Lamb got hurt, the Cowboys were phenomenal on offense. The run game was more efficient. They started to bracket shell coverage George Pickens, allowed for other receivers to eat, allowed for Jake Ferguson to eat. It allowed for the run game to be effective, like I said. If I'm George Pickens and being around George Pickens, that to me is a slap on the face. One, I went 3 straight seasons in Pittsburgh, over 1,000 yards in the Pittsburgh offense. Horrific. There's no type of passing game, no type of consistent offensive coordinator mesh with, just how things were going. You've watched the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last post-Ben Roethlisberger era. It's been horrific. Like, put a knife to my eyes, gouge them out. I don't want to watch this product. When I look at George Pickens with the Cowboys, he went over 1,000 last year nonchalantly. Yeah, the guy missed meetings when they were in Vegas, but the guy came out against the Raiders the next day on Monday Night Football or primetime, went for over 100, 2 tuds, like yak ability, one of the best in the game. He deserves to get paid. And I don't blame George Pickens for whatever actions may come upon, this situation proceeding forward, whether he wants to be a prima donna about it, whether he wants to hold out, whether he wants to pull a Micah Parsons and sit down while a preseason game going. I get it. You have to get your money now while you can. You've shown you can do it. You've done it for 4 years. Jerry Jones is going to be stingy, but at the end of the day, I can respect Jerry Jones because he always puts his money where his mouth is and he always writes the check.
Breiden, great stuff, man. Can't wait to catch more of what you got coming on YouTube. The Fehoko Show. Check it out. Search Breiden, Breiden, Breiden Fehoko on YouTube. He'll drop it this weekend, and then much more to come there as well. Appreciate your time, man.
Appreciate it, fellas. Thank you.
Absolutely. Former NFL D lineman, national champ at LSU, Breiden Fehoko with us here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Chris Mack in for Nick Costos. And I said it the other day. I tend to think the same thing that Breiden just said, which is I don't know if George Pickens plays another snap for the Dallas Cowboys. I realize it looks now like everybody's cooled out a little bit and Pickens will sign the tag. You can't tell me that George Pickens is going to play it down on a franchise tag. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. Even if he comes into camp on the franchise tag, you can't tell me that something won't happen where he forces the Cowboys' hand. And they don't want to give him that extension. They don't want to commit that much money to the wide receiver position. And if that's the case, if you're the Cowboys, rip the Band-Aid off now. Do it. Open the George Pickens market and get it done now rather than he comes into camp, he's malcontent, he's, as Breiden put it, acting like a prima donna and getting in the way of everything you're trying to build after all the other positives you stacked up this offseason. If you're Jerry and Stephen Jones, you got to take a step back and ask yourself, is the juice going to be worth the squeeze with George Pickens and dealing with what we may have to deal with, not just in training camp, but once the season gets started, with Pickens' attitude and his mood?